Hey ToyFans, welcome back to another week of Project Geek Week, your friendly neighborhood geek news and talk show. With me this week I've got Greg.
Hey there.
Hey, so a lot of news came out this week, so we got some pretty cool things to get into. The first thing we want to talk about is Caitlyn Jenner. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's go ahead and talk about Kang the Conqueror. So, if you guys haven't seen the story, speaking via Facebook, Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn was asked about the potential for the classic Avengers villain to appear in any future Avengers film or even Guardians of the Galaxy. And James Gunn actually noted that Kang first appeared in Fantastic Four under the guise of King Rama-Tut. And even though he hasn't really been associated with the Fantastic Four, that was his first appearance, therefore, Marvel can't use him in their movies. Now, this is kind of a blow, honestly, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you had to list the top 5 Avengers villains, up there with Ultron and Loki, would definitely be Kang the Conqueror, a time-traveling villain that every time the Avengers think that they beat him, another one comes from another alternate timeline back to kind of take over and continue the mission of his previous self.
Sounds like Reverse Flash.
More or less like, yeah, the Avengers version of Reverse Flash. So very, very notable, I think, that Marvel Studios doesn't have access to Kang. Now, as a fan of the X-Men films and what Fox has been doing with the X-Men, I'm elated that this is sort of a victory in our pocket, that Fox has the rights to this character. Do I think Fox is going to use him? Absolutely not. There's no famous X-Men story, no famous Fantastic Four story, really Fantastic Four story that this character is featured in. So I think this just means Fox has got a character that they can sit on and say, ha, Marvel, you're trying to hurt us? Well, now we've got this one and we're not going to do anything with it.
So Fox, as far as Fantastic Four, they keep using Doom.
Yes.
They have the Silver Surfer and Galactus, I guess.
They do. And, they could do the Mole Man if they wanted to. They could do
I can't see there
Psycho
being
Man.
like a big budget Mole Man movie.
Who knows, man? I mean, you pay Danny DeVito enough money, you got yourself the
That's
Mole
true.
Man. So I think that'd be really cool. So, but yeah, definitely notable, I think, that Fox has the rights to this character. Now, who knows? Maybe in a Fantastic Four 2. I really don't see Kang being used in X-Men. But if maybe in a Fantastic Four 2, they could use Kang the Conqueror. But I think if we're getting the negative zone in the first Fantastic Four movie, if we don't get him in the first, if we don't get a Nihilus in the first Fantastic Four film this summer, he would almost certainly have to be in the second movie as they explore more of the negative zone.
Do you think the fact that they have, I guess, rights to Doctor Doom is going to affect the whole Secret Wars plotline at all, or is that just going to be over before that matters?
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, and maybe we'll wait till we talk about some couple images that have been released. Yeah, I guess let's table that for a minute.
Yeah.
So, but do you have any other thoughts on Kang? I know you're not really familiar with him.
I don't know the villain very well, but I guess within the context of being in the new Guardians movie, he's not going to.
Right.
And do we know anything else about who the villain is going to be? I heard that it's not going to be Star-Lord's father, even though he's kind of playing a villain role.
I hadn't heard that directly, so I don't really know what to expect from Guardians 2. Obviously, it's going to be more set up for the Infinity War movies. But yeah, I don't know who the villain's supposed to be at this point.
That franchise right now is able to kind of do its own thing. So
it really is.
I mean, who do you think they would bring in? Do they need more Thanos? Do they need?
I mean, I think Thanos. If there's going to be a movie where Thanos is ramping up before Infinity War, you think that would be it, was Guardians 2. Mm-hmm. But we might get more henchmen. I don't know. I don't know the Guardians well enough. I mean, really, the Guardians that these movies are based off of are the Guardians of the Galaxy that were reintroduced to the Marvel comic book universe with events like Annihilation and War of Kings in the mid-2000s. And I didn't read those. That was when Civil War was at its peak. Mm-hmm. So I missed out on a lot of that stuff. So yeah. I guess we'll have to see what they do with it. But really, they could use anybody, I suppose.
Right, okay.
So, all right, well, then let's move on to the next bit of topic. And this is going to be kind of a quick hit that, again, leads into another topic that we have coming out. Via Bleeding Cool, we got our first image of Trend International's Marvel character poster for 2015. Nice. This poster is notable because it's missing quite a few Marvel mainstays that have been in previous posters.
Continuing the trend that we discussed a couple weeks ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Of the downplaying of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. So I'm putting up on the screen right now the image of this poster from 2007. Now, you guys may have actually seen this poster. I've actually had a couple of friends themselves who owned the 2007 version of this poster. And it's a poster that features Marvel comic book characters. None of the artwork on this poster was created originally for this poster. It's images of characters from other books repurposed for this lineup. And you'll see that in the lineup we see the X-Men, we see the Fantastic Four, we see the Avengers, we see everybody. Then they redid this poster in 2013. They got rid of the red Marvel logo at the bottom. It was more of a black background around all the heroes. The X-Men and the Fantastic Four were kind of pushed off to the side, and the Avengers were kind of brought more front and center. But this year, the poster that they're releasing has absolutely no X-Men or Fantastic Four characters on it. I mean, like, not even Doctor Doom, who's a pretty big character in Secret Wars, the new one, even the old one, is not there. So I guess, what are your thoughts on this poster?
I mean, I guess we can't consider it too much of a surprise at this point. It's continuing to be disappointing. It certainly highlights Marvel's priorities right now.
It honestly makes me think that with this poster coming out and with what we've heard about merchandising dying down for X-Men and Fantastic Four all around, I personally believe that any merchandise that was already in production, like for instance the Sabretooth Marvel Zombie figure, that's still coming out because it's already been licensor approved, it's in production, it's too far along. But starting effective today or whatever financial quarter they want to pick this year, nothing is in production for X-Men or Fantastic Four. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like.
So it's really a disappointment. So we won't get, I mean, just looking at the table for this week's show, I mean, these guys right here, you're not going to be able to get those at the end of this year. They're not coming out next year. I guess I should throw in here really quick that the San Diego...
Gene is actually waving goodbye.
Yeah, Gene is waving goodbye here. I guess Beast could be too. But it's, I guess, worth noting too, if you're a fan of Marvel Legends like I am, your last chance to get an X-Men character might be in the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Book of S.H.I.E.L.D that was just announced, which features 5 characters who are magic characters from the Marvel Universe. In there is the magic figure that we saw announced at San Diego Comic-Con last year, and Hasbro kind of said, well, we developed this, but we don't know what series we're going to be able to put her in. Well, it looks like our final X-Men Legend may be part of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. So if you're a fan of the X-Men, get your pre-orders in early or go to the show because that might be your last chance for a good while to be able to get any X-Men characters. So, but yeah, so as we move on then and we talk about those posters, let's kind of roll into the actual official images that came straight from Marvel directly. We've got a first look and a second look at the Marvel Comic Book Universe post Secret Wars. So the first image that popped up, and I'm putting it up on the screen now, features a lineup of characters including Spider-Woman / Spider-Gwen, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, presumably, the Miles Morales Spider-Man. We've got the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, the new design. We have Iron Man, which has since been confirmed to be Tony Stark. I have thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. We have Phil Coulson. We've got Captain Falcon. We've got the Sam Wilson Captain America. Steve Rogers, Black Panther, and then a shocking conclusion, Red Wolf. So if you look on that poster in the lower right-hand corner, there's a Native American-like guy with face paint and a bow and arrow, and he apparently has some mystical abilities and a sidekick wolf named Lobo, which I think is a terrible name for a wolf sidekick. It's so cliche. But anyway, I guess, what are your thoughts on the poster?
I have actually not seen the poster,
okay.
But I don't know who Red Wolf is. Is he new, I guess? Is that what you're
Red Wolf is a character who has bounced around the Marvel Universe. I think he was introduced in the 1970s during Roy Thomas's run on the Avengers as an attempt to create diversity for the team. Mm-hmm. They brought on your stock Native American character, which they've done better with characters like Warpath and Forge. They've done better with representing the Native Americans. Dr. Voodoo. But anyway, what we're looking at with this character is it's just a character I think that Marvel kind of looked back and said, what have we got out there that's kind of different? And they're bringing it back to the forefront. And I guess that's what we're getting. I don't know. It's just weird that he's on the poster for Post-Secret War.
It's exciting to have Coulson on the lineup. I don't suppose there was any hint at his robotic hand or anything of that?
Nothing like that in the poster. Okay. So, and I think what we can get from this, I don't think the sales, at least from what I've seen at my local comic book shop, I don't work a comic book shop, but from what I've seen, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic book series that's been coming out, I don't think it's been as big of a seller as they were hoping it would be. Mm-hmm. So at least this poster lets us know that Coulson's still going to be around, even though this book is likely coming to an end post-Secret War.
Oh, that's too bad.
So again, I don't know that for sure, but there are always copies of this book on the shelf. You never have any trouble getting it. That's not usually a good sign. Mm-hmm. So, but it's interesting that we've got 4 Spider characters on this first image. I personally love the fact that Spider-Gwen, presumably Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Jessica Drew Spider-Woman are all around. I maintain that Spider-Verse is one of the most fun events that we've had so far this year, and I don't think you can have too many Spider-Men in the Marvel Universe at this point. So let's do, in the DC Universe, you've got the Gotham Knights, right? You've got Batgirl, Robin, Red Hood, Batman, all those guys, and they can all exist in the same city, and they're all kind of similarly themed, but they're all their own characters. I love that Spider-Man seems to be getting his own version of like the Spider Knights. Or
we can probably lose Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham, yeah, he has his fans. But yeah, he certainly doesn't need to be on the front cover of every issue. So I guess that's just my general thoughts, your general thoughts there on that first poster. But then the second poster that was released, and this just came out last night, Thursday, we're recording on Friday. This one is a little more telling of what we can expect post-Marvel Cinematic Universe. We get characters on here like The Thing, so we have confirmation that at least one Fantastic Four character is still going to exist. And should I add, one Fantastic Four character that so far hasn't shown up in Secret Wars. And he's got the Guardians of the Galaxy outfit on, which I think is pretty cool.
So what are they going to do with Thing?
Obviously, they're sending him off into space, but I think they're trying to give him more prominence, maybe by making him a central character of the Guardians team. We'll see. I mean, maybe he's the bruiser for the Fantastic Four. The Guardians have Drax. They've got Groot, I guess, as their bruisers. It's interesting to see to add him another bruiser to the team.
I guess what I mean more is why do you think they're taking a gamble on Thing?
I think because Thing's a fun character. He's just, I mean, he's the monstrous character, right? I mean, for the Fantastic Four, he is anyway.
His role's pretty clear.
Yeah, his role's pretty clear. You would think.
Yeah.
So I also find it interesting that Rocket Raccoon in that image seems to be positioned above him. Now Rocket is actually on like a hoverboard of sorts. He's not standing on Ben's shoulder, which I thought it looked like initially. But I think he's just going to be the fun character to get in there and smack guys around, saying it's clobbering time and space. We have Rocket Raccoon, as I mentioned on the poster. Hyperion's on there. Medusa's on there. And then we get an image of Daredevil, who's in a mostly all-black outfit, which I think very much echoes the Netflix Daredevil costume.
Very popular right now.
So that's kind of interesting. I don't know that I'm entirely sold on the look of the character yet, but it's notable that they've changed him all black. We have Doctor Strange with an axe. Doctor Strange hasn't typically used weapons in the past, and I'm curious to see where this axe comes into play and if it's part of Secret War. I guess we'll find out. We've got Old Man Logan, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody at this point. If there were any X-Men property that we could safely say Marvel seems to want to support, it's certainly Old Man Logan at this point. So he seems like he might be the standard Wolverine moving forward in the new new comic book universe. Star-Lord's on there. There's a character who I think looked a lot like Alex Mercer from Prototype. Do you remember that hoodie-wearing, jacket-wearing guy from the Activision games?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Taking me a blast from the past.
That was my first thought when I saw this guy, but apparently it's Karnak.
Okay.
So Karnak, I didn't realize he had passed away, but I guess he's back now, and he just looks like Alex Mercer.
Well, there we go.
And then the biggest one for me on this poster is the new image of Wolverine. I want to talk about that a little bit. We all kind of wondered what was going on with the X-Men, with the death of Wolverine, what was going to happen. I just assumed that Old Man Logan was going to be the standard Wolverine, and that was going to replace the previous Wolverine. It looks like while Old Man Logan is going to exist in the post-Secret War universe, the all-new, all-different Marvel universe, X-23 has been confirmed to be the identity of that female Wolverine in this preview image. So I'm personally really excited about this.
Yeah. It's a great fit for X-23 for sure.
I think so too. I mean, I've been a big fan of her since she first debuted on X-Men Evolution. And actually, the first thing I did when I saw that it was X-23 and learned that that was true is I tweeted at Chris Yost. Craig Kyle and Chris Yost co-created X-23 for X-Men Evolution. Both of them worked on New X-Men and have, on and off each other have been writing the character since she was brought into the comics. And I was like really excited. I was like, new chapter in X-23's life. So I tweeted, congratulations on the promotion, Laura. Can't wait to see what, Chris Yost does with you. And he responded to me, news to me. So he had no idea that they were doing this with X-23. I thought that was hilarious. I hope that means he's still somehow involved in her storytelling because I think he's really good for the character. But I thought it was funny that the character of X-23 had no idea that she was the new Wolverine until the rest of us found out.
That's
with this
outstanding.
Yeah, so I thought that was a lot of fun. But overall, these images, I think, are kind of interesting. You'll notice that characters are missing, like the Hulk. Both of these images feature Iron Man and a costume that's definitely a different look, but it's the same one that we got in the Free Comic Book Day issue of Avengers that came out, back in May. Now, IGN had an interview with Alex Alonso, and he did confirm that that was Tony Stark in the armor. I wonder if it's Ultimate Tony in the armor.
I don't know the difference.
Well, as you've read Ultimate in, Ultimate Tony is more of a full of himself, more of a sarcastic
Is he the guy that didn't want to take the blame?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
And what I find interesting about that is in Alex Alonso's interview with IGN, he kind of talked about how Robert Downey Jr. is front and center in the cinematic universe, and they want to have an Iron Man that reflects that. Well, 616 Iron Man hasn't really had that attitude ever because that's not how he was written. That's what Downey brought to the character. But Ultimate Iron Man, by coincidence really, has always been kind of a smarmy jerk and been very confident in his abilities. If he replaces the 616 Iron Man in this comic book, I think that would be a good fit as far as matching up with the movies. Again, we don't know that. And the Free Comic Book Day issue of Avengers didn't really seem to suggest that it was the ultimate version of Tony Stark in the armor. So I'm curious to see where they go with this, but I think that'd be really cool, and it would explain the redesign and how the mask even kind of sort of looks like the ultimate Tony Iron Man mask.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Do you have any additional things you'd like to add to that?
Well, you were talking about how Hulk isn't there, and I was just noticing that with the inclusion of Thing, is he going to serve more in the big hulking monster role, and what are they doing with Hulk?
I don't know, because
standalone Hulk book?
Right now Hulk he's got his intelligence back. So which is actually very similar to the original Secret War when he was smart during that storyline too. I don't know, now that they've got Hulk in that sort of state, if they want to keep him there. I don't know how the readers are really reacting to it. I haven't read a lot of Hulk stuff with him being Smart Hulk again. If people like it, I assume they'd want to go ahead and keep Smart Hulk, but I guess anything could happen. Initially, before Alex Alonso confirmed that was in fact Tony Stark in the Iron Man armor, a lot of people were thinking that the Bruce Banner was in that Iron Man armor, which I thought would have been kind of an interesting twist, especially since he's all smarts anymore. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of where I see that going.
Well, I don't really know from previous comic reading, I guess, what to take from images like these. Are these a sign of like the people who aren't here are going to have big important standalone books, or are they just going to fall to the wayside?
I think Marvel's response to that so far has been a lot of announcements are coming. So I don't know that we really have a straight answer on that one way or another.
Yeah, so there could be more info on the way.
Correct. And if you'll bear with me, guys, here, we actually had a viewer question, which I think ties into what we're doing right now. So give me just a moment here. Okay, so Ryan, he's written into the show before. And guys, if you want to write into us, you can tweet me at D21Beast or tweet Greg at Yoshimitsu47. Just make sure you hashtag Project Geek Week so we can find the question really easily, just like I've done here. But we'll be glad to answer your show on the air and kind of give you our thoughts. Ryan asked, do you think Marvel will get rid of the X-Men completely? And I believe he means post-Secret War. So my thought on that is that the X-Men won't go away completely. And the reason for that is, I think, for that is that Marvel doesn't want to be caught in a trap, essentially. If they go and murder all the X-Men and get rid of them, and suddenly they get the movie rights back, well, now they've got to explain, like, well, what do we do to bring them back? So there are rumors floating out there. I know Forbes, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact place that Forbes sourced, but they had a rumor that they were talking about where the X-Men supposedly, and this is potentially a spoiler, guys, but it's not really if you see what Marvel's been doing with the property lately. They say that post-Secret War that the X-Men will be isolated to their own corner of the universe. So somewhere off in space doing their own thing that does not interact with the Marvel universe at large. So
they'll have a book.
They'll have a book, basically, yeah. We don't know if they'll have as many spin-off books as they have now. Obviously, with this all-new, all-different Marvel image that we've seen with the X-23 on there, X-23 and Old Man Logan may not even be with the X-Men. Who knows? But it seems like they're going to put him somewhere safely tucked away where they can still keep writing stories because the X-Men books do sell, much to the chagrin of Marvel at this point. I don't know that we'll get a lot of important stories out of these tales because they don't want to have anything that Fox can potentially feed off of. But they'll be somewhere doing something until Marvel gets the go-ahead to bring them back, basically, when things go the way that they want them to. So
good to know they'll still be around in some fashion, though.
I think so, too. And again, that's completely unconfirmed, but it's been reported by a few different sites. It does kind of make sense with the attitude that Marvel's had lately. And, you know, with the state that Cyclops is in right now.
Yes.
He's the Phoenix Cyclops, essentially.
Spoilers.
So, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to Secret Wars number 3. But originally when I heard this rumor, I was like, well, that wouldn't make sense. How do you get all the mutant characters out into space and kind of isolated? Well, if Scott sees a reason for them to need to be somewhere different, maybe he can, being the Phoenix Force, just teleport everybody, friends and allies, off to this distant area, and they can just have their own little adventures. Yeah. So that's kind of what my prediction is, Ryan, about what's going on. I think that the X-Men will still very much be doing something. It just won't be very important because Marvel doesn't want to give any ammunition to Fox, but they'll still be around, and I'll certainly still be reading the book at that point.
Absolutely.
So, but of course, we won't know anything for sure until Secret Wars is over. So, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next bit of news then. We had 2 different casting updates, I guess you could say, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Luke Mitchell, who played Lincoln in Season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., has been promoted to series regular in Season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
No surprise there.
Yeah, I don't think that's any surprise either. So
we had talked about people who might potentially come into regular status in Season 3, and he's definitely one who was on the list. And they're really seeming to want to push the whole Sky Lincoln ship stuff.
Exactly, and I think they definitely want to get more powers on the show now, and that's a great way to do that. Yep. So, yeah, no surprise there. Now, an even bigger surprise that I think that it even took this long to announce this was that actor Henry Simmons, Mackenzie, or Mac, on the show, is getting promoted to series regular in Season 3.
So that makes the season finale fake out of him leaving just completely.
Yeah, I mean, not that we bought that to begin with, but man, I gotta say, I'm really surprised that this didn't happen halfway through Season 2 when, the woman who plays Bobby, help me out here.
Adrian,
Pollock. When she got promoted to series regular at the second half of Season 2, I'm like, well, what about Mac? You know?
Yeah. We're not sure about you yet.
Yeah, so I'm honestly glad to see him as a series regular. One of my favorite moments of Season 2 at this point was that moment when Gordon walks into the room and Mac's there with the fire axe. Yeah. And Gordon's just like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the guy who kills Gordon. I mean, I thought that was amazing. And Mac really had his moment to shine. So very glad to see him as a series regular.
I mean, do you think we're eventually going to have a return to the plot line where he got creep possessed and somehow he'll
I wonder, man. You know, like the way the show's going right now, he's definitely been exposed, so anything can happen. But yeah, why not? I mean, it'd be kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to X-Men Apocalypse then. Bryan Singer, as he does, was tweeting out some updates this week. And the first update we got from him was actually a bunch of standby chairs on the set of X-Men Apocalypse. So all the chairs showed you the name of the actors or the character of the that the actors play that are going to be in the movie. And I'm going to read those off really quick, and we'll kind of discuss our thoughts. The image showed a chair for Mystique, Beast, Storm, Xavier, Magneto, Moira, Havoc, and Apocalypse. Now, that's an interesting lineup of characters.
It is.
I think notably absent that we've already seen set photos of, Jean and Cyclops and Nightcrawler. I kind of wonder, and actually in that same mall shot, now that I think about it, Storm was never present in any of those shots, was she?
No, there was the individual shot of her.
Yeah, in like a dressing room almost.
Yeah.
Maybe during a costume tryout. So, and I guess Jubilee was in the mall too.
Jubilee,
So
yep.
I wonder now if there's going to be dual stories running in this movie, maybe where the younger mutants maybe haven't caught up with the X-Men yet. I don't know.
So just to totally overanalyze the image, as I recall, you had Apocalypse sitting over on kind of the middle.
Yes.
And then you had Xavier and Moira sitting to his left.
Yeah.
And Havoc and Magneto, I want to say, sitting to his right.
I think that's right.
So there's your four
yeah.
horsemen right there.
Oh, I don't know about that. I did kind of wonder though with Havoc especially. He had a larger presence in First Class and not a huge presence in Days of Future Past. It would be interesting if they have him be a horseman in this movie. So I don't think that there's precedent for that in the comics, but I do feel like one of the X-Men Legends games made him a horseman, right? Didn't X-Men Legends 2, the video game, wasn't he a horseman?
Possibly. I can't remember.
No, you know what it was he became a member of the Brotherhood in the first game.
Ah, okay.
So that's when he kind of had his villainous turn. So I don't know. I'm sure Bryan Singer didn't even play that game or knows about it, but it'd be interesting to see. But I like the idea of all these characters needing to be on set at one time. It seems like this is a really important scene that's being done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. No pictures from this, unfortunately, but
No.
I do think that this may be the first time that I'm aware of that Apocalypse has shot anything for the movie. So they may be starting with a really big introduction for him.
It's too bad we didn't get an on-set made-up photo.
At some point we're going to have to get that.
Yep.
And when it comes out, it's going to be amazing. So the next image that Bryan Singer tweeted out, it's not as big of a deal, but they've basically reconstructed the Cerebro set again. So if you look at the image of it, Bryan Singer's standing on the ground, and if you don't know how the Cerebro set works in the movies, they have a platform. They basically build a 2-story set, and they have a hallway on a second story, and then an archway or a doorway that comes off of that with the platform that Cerebro is basically the control station is on. And then during X2, I think they originally wanted to build in a completely round room, which they may have done for the first X-Men film, I'm not sure, but I know during X-Men 2 they discovered it was much easier to just build a shifting wall, so every time they changed the camera angle, they just move the wall around. So they definitely had that sort of set going on again with X-Men Apocalypse. So it's just kind of cool to see that all completely reconstructed.
I think there was green screen back there too.
There's green screen if they miss anything.
Yeah.
So very much a familiar set, very much a familiar technique for building the set, but it's just kind of nice. And then Bryan Singer even tweeted out with the image, Cerebro is Spanish for brain. So, just keeping the humor going there. All right, so let's go ahead and talk then about Star Trek 3. So we are Trekkies, as you guys know, and we've been keeping up on what's been going on with Star Trek 3. And we got some interesting comments from Simon Pegg recently, basically stating that the studio, they thought the original idea of the script that they got turned in by Roberto Orci was to Star Trek-y.
New Star Trek.
Which we have inferred must be the reason that he dramatically left the movie last December without warning. Because they told him to rewrite it, and he just said, he wasn't going to be a part of it. So then Simon Pegg came out and said basically they were looking for a bombastic action film. I mean, I'm forgetting the comments exactly. You can check a couple weeks back, but his comments did not inspire confidence.
Write a Western or a heist movie and then populate it with Star Trek.
That's right, yeah. So basically take a movie that's not Star Trek and put a Star Trek guy in it and call it Star Trek.
Yep.
So that was certainly disheartening. But then we get this story, and again, this is another one. IGN held all the great stories this week, it seems like. This is another one that came from IGN where they didn't have an interview with Lin, but they were quoting him, and they didn't source where it came from. But Justin Lin said, among many other things, let me first tell you that he told a really sweet story, basically, about what Star Trek meant to him. And this is the first time I've ever seen Justin Lin speaking to Star Trek, aside from the fact to say that he's doing it. But he said that his family had a restaurant that they would run in Los Angeles, and of course his family was all completely invested in this restaurant, his siblings, his parents, and they would work basically until 10 o'clock, I think he said it was, and when the restaurant would close. And then after the restaurant was closed and cleaned up around 11, that's when they finally ate dinner as a family. And at that time, local Los Angeles time, were weekly, nightly reruns of Star Trek, the original series. So that's how his exposure to Star Trek was his family time, and he thought the show was really important to him. So I thought, well, that's an amazing, sounds familiar. But I thought that was an amazing sort of connection that he had with the series that I haven't heard from certainly Abrams. But even Simon Pegg, who's a definite fan of Star Trek, hasn't really kind of related to the movie in that way. And then Lynn went on to actually say this: the Klingons, Romulans, and other species are great, but it's time to go further. It has been fun to focus on creating a whole new world and new species. And then he goes on to say they haven't really gone on their 5-year mission. So what we experienced on the TV show hasn't been touched on yet. So I think it's kind of interesting that that's kind of the take that he's doing on it, right? Like he wants to go do something new. He wants them exploring it on their 5-year mission.
Brave New Worlds.
Brave New Worlds, yeah. New world, seek out new life and new civilizations. So I honestly, granted, the studio is still involved here, so you're going to have to take this with a grain of salt. And they have their agenda, which is not to appease Star Trek fans. That's just flat out what their agenda is. But with comments like this coming from the director, I'm a little more optimistic about the outcome of this movie. I'm hoping we get a bit more of that thoughtful science fiction than what we've maybe received in the past. Again, time will tell. This may just turn out to be a war movie with an alien species we've never met before, and that's the way they handle new worlds and new civilizations.
It'll certainly be nice to have somebody who does have a connection to the Star Trek franchise. And hearing basically that if it's not going to be something too Star Trek-y, as they described it,
right,
then at least it'll be something that's well thought out and still committed to Star Trek in a way. I hope. I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. But
yeah, we can only hope. The movie starts filming in 4 weeks, so hopefully before too long we'll be able to talk more about images from the set and kind of what's going on there, casting even. So there's a lot to come up with that. But I really appreciate Justin Lin's comments. And honestly, like Greg said here, the way he described Star Trek and like the way their family shared it is very familiar to us. We were definitely a family that all of us were either at school or at work, but at the end of the day, it was dinner time, and it's time to watch the new episode of Star Trek, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, whatever was on at the time.
We grew up in that golden age when Trek was just on for 10, 15
years. Yes, so it certainly influenced us, so I'm very excited by that. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and then talk about our comic book reviews for the week. So we actually reviewed 3 books again this week, just like we did last week. The first one we want to talk about is Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. Now, this book is a Secret War tie-in book, but it's very much, I think, isolated from the larger picture of what's going on in Secret War. So this book, initially, as it was solicited, a lot of people assumed, and Marvel didn't really do anything to play it down, that this book was going to be a continuation of John Michael Straczynski's run on Spider-Man leading up to One More Day, where Peter and Mary Jane were married and talking about having a child. It was after Peter had revealed his identity during Civil War, and basically we were getting this sort of domesticated Spider-Man. Personally, for me, I really enjoyed that story because I had grown up with the college years of Spider-Man, as it were. And I wasn't alive, obviously, for the high school stuff, and I hadn't read a lot of it at that point. But for me, Spider-Man was this guy who was a science teacher out of college. He's kind of developing his family and being a hero and trying to figure out what all that means. And I really enjoyed the stories that were being told. And then we had One More Day come through, and like an F5 tornado just completely wreck all of that and set Peter Parker back in his aunt's basement as a struggling photographer, and they made a lot of changes. So as we see the image of this book, and we see Spider-Man and Mary Jane and a little girl who we assumed was Mayday Parker.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. It was just really exciting for me to kind of get back to that. And I like that Dan Slott was writing it because, especially with the Spider-Verse stuff, but all the stuff he did with Superior Spider-Man, I think he's a great writer for the book. But then we actually read the book. And the book actually features Spider-Man and Mary Jane and their daughter, Anna, right? Annie. Yeah, so that was kind of a surprise for me. But then the book keeps bringing on the surprises. There is a villain that is killing everybody in the Marvel Universe and seemingly absorbing their powers. And it basically comes down to where Spider-Man's the last guy to take him out, and he doesn't even try. He's fighting Venom that same night when this new villain, and I'm forgetting his name. Do you remember his name?
Oh, the Regent?
Regent, yeah, the Regent. So basically, it's up to Spider-Man to save the day. He has a life and death struggle to actually take out Venom, who is being pretty scary, right? He had toyed around with Mary Jane and Annie, and he
apparently he didn't know. He did know about the kid. Okay.
He did. Well, I mean, he did because he was holding her. I think he figured out when he got out of the raft.
He implied after he got out of prison that now that he knew about Spider-Man's kid, he knew his main weakness, and
exactly, and he wasn't going to
stop. Even if he got
stop.
away, he was never going to stop. Yeah.
Yep. So Spider-Man, Peter Parker did what he needed to, seemingly killed Venom, and basically said, "All right, my family's safe, and that's it. I'm done." And I think it's a really interesting take on this Spider-Man story. I mean, this is the first issue of I don't know how many. I don't think this is designed as a limited series run, but it probably is. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes from here. There's a solicit or an image in the book of issue number 3 that shows Spider-Man wearing the black suit costume. So I guess we can assume that the suit's at least still around. So, but honestly, I was very surprised by this book. I expected a Secret Wars in continuity, or how you're going to look at it, out of continuity version, continuation of everything that was happening up to Spider-Man One More Day. And while I didn't get that at all, I really, really enjoyed what I got out of this book. So I'm definitely giving this a recommendation. But Greg, what do you think as somebody who didn't read that original story? And I don't really know what your exposure to Spider-Man's been. Has it just been the movies? And the animated series?
I would say that probably, yeah.
Okay.
But even so, I would say it was definitely a very strong entry. It's not something where I felt like I was completely out of my depth. And it was exciting. You know, you had the stuff with the Regent, and you had a relatable, understandable, simple story with Peter and this villain that even if you didn't know their history, you can kind of get that the dynamics are easy to grok. And I don't think Eddie's gone, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
And yeah, certainly the symbiote's not gone. So we'll have to see where that goes in the future. And yeah, I would give it a thumbs up.
Okay. Oh, and I got to say on the Eddie point too, Venom has been so many people besides Eddie Brock in the last few years. It was just kind of fun to see Eddie Brock as Venom again. Now, his costume design very much spoke of Mac Gargan Venom, which I was a little upset by, but it was still cool that it was Eddie. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next book then. This book also had its fair share of twists and turns. We have... Oh, and I should mention, Spider-Man Renew Your Vows was written by Dan Slott and drawn by Adam Kubert. So I think the art was really good in that book. So as we look at Secret Wars number 3, written by Jonathan Hickman, art again by Asad Ribic, the same as the previous. We got a lot of story development in this issue of Secret Wars. So we see in this story that Doom is very much in self-doubt about everything that he's done. We've learned that since the first issue of Secret Wars that there have been 8 years that have passed between basically issue 1 and issue 2 and 3. We kind of see that Doom, I guess, shaped the world with the help of Doctor Strange into what they wanted it to be. Johnny Storm is
the son.
Is he dead? I don't know. I mean, he's the son. Yeah. We see, what else are some other things we see? Oh, well, we get the reintroduction of characters we're actually familiar with, which is really fun. We see Miles Morales pop out of the ship that Thanos and his crew were on.
A whole group of people that survived from the previous universe and remember. So Strange, I thought the best parts of this book, and there were some good parts in this book, were the ones right at the beginning where Doom was talking to Strange.
Yes.
And they were talking about how, Doom wasn't happy with this world that it created, and something about how, Strange could have been the god as well, but he didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And then, especially at the end, I thought the line, I think it was at the end, but at the end when we got to Reed Richards, and he was like, Strange, why would you do this? Why would you let Doom be God? And Strange is like, well, he's actually not bad.
Yeah, right? He's doing an okay job.
Yeah. So I definitely like that dynamic, and kind of Strange feeling wise beyond his years, and Doom feeling like even though now he has everything he ever wanted, he's still not happy. And maybe seeing that side of his character. And I don't know, do you think they're going to go the direction of Doom being this supervillain that everybody has to bring down, or is he going to have a more redemptive arc?
I honestly think he's somebody who's going to have to be brought down. And I think that those images we saw of the all-new, all-different Marvel Universe, I think that at the end of this story, Doom, possibly even Reed Richards and Sue, I don't know, are not going to make it out through Secret War, which might be why Ben Grimm is in the Guardians and why we don't see any sign of anybody else in those preview images. Again, all speculation, but Doom is a powerful guy at this point.
Yeah,
and
he's gone.
I mean, something's going to happen for this battle world to end, so I think part of that's going to be a grand last stand, struggle for power. I don't know what, but possibly Doom and Reed and Sue all sacrificing themselves. I don't know. Plus, we haven't even seen. Reed doesn't know yet that Doom has essentially taken his family and
he still thinks Sue is dead. Because
exactly.
She fell out of their ship when they were switching universes.
Yep.
So yeah.
So, and Sue, Valeria, Franklin, they're all completely comfortable with Doom as substitute daddy at this point.
Yeah, and they made, was it Star-Lord or Strange who explained, but that basically when the universe is reset, there was all sorts of wibbly wobbly timey stuff.
Yeah.
And nobody, like, people may have known at first that the universe had reset, but now they've all forgotten.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. So, but this issue definitely went, I think, a lot of the way to explaining kind of what the heck happened between issue 1 and issue 2, and I appreciated that. And I really like this sort of secret that Doctor Strange has. I mean, it's almost like he's using the police Thor guys as kind of like his secret militia to kind of keep his agenda running underneath Doom, because the deputy, I guess you could say, the recently promoted deputy, was just kind of getting introduced to everything just like the reader was, and there was no sort of question about what he was doing. He was just like, this is what we're doing down here.
Yep.
So I kind of like that. I'm very, very much into this story, and I gotta say, Secret Wars, this story isn't entirely original, dare I say. A lot of what I'm seeing in this book feels similar to what we got with House of M back during, the House of M story. But I think that
Just different people in royalty now.
Exactly. But I think that while House of M was definitely groundbreaking at the time and definitely gave us that sense of what's going on and the wonder of figuring it all out, I think that the way that Secret Wars is telling its story is way more effective.
Yeah, very refined.
Yeah, so I really enjoy this tale, and I think this is definitely going to be, if it ends as well as it's starting, one of those Marvel stories that people are talking about for a long time.
We got Thanos and the Maker and a little bit with them, and I'm trying to remember exactly what happened there.
You know, I can't remember either.
Panels.
They seem to just honestly being kind of investigating what's going on, because we saw them in different territories, even like around a campfire at one point. It looks like, and maybe I missed it in the first issue, but it seems like Namor is part of the group too that Thanos is with.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really don't know what to make of those guys yet. And
They're still in holding.
They're still in holding, and honestly, so far they're not the interesting part of the book for me. So if they won't fade away, but if they did, I don't know that I'd notice with everything else that we're getting. Yeah. So. But anyway, yeah, so I really like the way that this book's going. I think it's on a great trajectory. We get one more this month. They seem to be doing them 2 a month, so I'm excited to pick that up here in the next couple of weeks.
Definitely recommended.
Absolutely, definitely recommended. So then let's go ahead and move on to Star Wars number 6. Now, this, of course, is not related to Secret Wars at all. The creative team on this is still Jason Aaron writing and John Cassaday doing the artwork. And we get some interesting developments in this book as well. So when we last left the team off in number 5, Luke had just been flashbinded by some sort of grenade and attacked by Boba Fett.
So that went exactly according to prediction.
Yes,
Two
exactly.
of them fought, and they did see each other. Boba actually did talk to him, but since they don't talk in the movies, there's not going to be any way for them to know that they met.
Right. So, and that interaction, for the most part, seems done. I mean, and we are talking spoilers here, guys, but at the end of the book, Boba Fett even goes to Vader and lets him know that it was Skywalker that he had to deal with, and Vader knows instantly, oh, well, I guess he's still around, and there's a great moment where he like cracks the glass around him.
He seems really upset about it.
Yeah, so, but then we get the other story.
Yep.
And Luke honestly seems more like the B story in this.
Also, before we move on from Luke, he also found the journal.
He did. He found a journal.
Obi-Wan's journal.
So I guess we're going to see what comes from that.
The journal kind of saved him in the battle.
It did actually, yeah. He was able to force it, and so that was a nice touch. And we've even gotten announcements from Marvel at this point that we will definitely be seeing what this journal is all about, and we're getting a flashback story at some point in the near future. So I guess we'll get some Alec Guinness Obi-Wan going on, or maybe some Ewan McGregor. I guess we'll see. So,
and they're also going to be changing art styles with that flashback.
Yes, they are. So if you guys haven't seen the announcements yet, this is the last issue, I believe, with John Cassaday. I think the next issue brings on Simone Bianchi, which I am not a fan of at all. I didn't like his work on Wolverine. I didn't like his work on Astonishing X-Men. His work looked better when he did work on Batman, but he's just not an artist that really clicks with me. But then after that story is done, we're getting Stuart Immonen coming in on art, which I love Stuart Immonen. Ever since Ultimate X-Men, the run that he did on that book, he did New Avengers for a while, he did Ultimate Spider-Man for a little while. He's got a really great sort of pop, fun, fresh art style.
So there's a good rotation of artists on
There is a good rotation of artists, I'll say that. I'm glad Bianchi's not going to be around that long.
So Han and Leia.
Han and Leia. So, Han and Leia, as you guys remember, we're trying to duck some TIE fighters on a dangerous planet. Turns out that planet's not so bad once you get to the atmosphere. And we see that Han's got a stash of wine, and he tries to romanticize or, get friendly with Leia, and she's just not having it.
Yep.
And then we finally figure out who this bounty hunter is that's been hunting down Han.
The ship lands, and
tell us who it is.
Well, it's Han's wife.
Which is odd.
Sala Solo, I think, something like that.
Yeah. Man, I'm forgetting her name too now.
Yeah.
So the last name is definitely Solo. That's something you want to remember. So Han apparently has a wife between episodes 3 and 4 that we've never heard about. I have to assume.
And we'll never hear about again.
Well, yeah. Well, I have to assume that either she's mistakenly believes she's married, although Han didn't do a lot to displayed
no,
that thought.
He seemed to know.
Yeah. Maybe she's going to go out of the book and out of the universe as quickly as she showed up or something. I mean, it's kind of significant that he's married and never mentions it ever
And
in the
that
movies.
Leia never mentions it again in the future.
Yeah,
Especially since they get kind of involved toward the end. So
exactly.
it's either going to be very short-lived or it's going to become very clear that the two of them are, no love lost between them.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a Secret World story and we just don't know yet. So, I don't know. It's really strange, I think. I'm not ready to say it's the worst thing ever, but I'm more so than even when Boba and Luke had to go up against each other. It's like, this really flies in the face of continuity.
Yeah.
Han having a wife definitely flies in the face of continuity. So,
And honestly, my only complaint with it, not even from the Han perspective, is that it's just a little bit disappointing that this bounty hunter they've been building up isn't someone you could have guessed.
yeah,
You
right?
know?
I mean, it would have been great if it was somebody from Rebels and really
Yeah.
kind of tie everything together
You're
there.
like, oh, that's why they were delaying this, not because, it's this new character that you, yeah.
Right. Well, and another thought I wonder too is this is really crazy, but does this mean that when Star Wars 7 comes out that Han's suddenly going to mention the wife that he had? Is this like maybe part of the script for that movie and they saw an opportunity to add her to the comics?
It's entirely possible.
Yeah. So I guess there's still more
you're
coming
worse
from
than
this.
my first wife.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Some throwaway line like that. And maybe this is us getting to know that, but I don't know. We'll see
have
kind of
to
what
see.
happens to come with that. So, but anyway, that's Star Wars. I mean, I think the art was still really nice, and I really enjoyed the Luke Vader Boba Fett stuff. And honestly, the banter between Leia and Han is still just as strong as it's always been. Just this is a very interesting element to add to the book, and I think it's going to take some time, some more story to decide whether or not we like it or not.
I'm definitely still enjoying the Star Wars comic series, although we'll have to see once the art style changes in the upcoming issues
Yeah.
how that goes.
So, anyway, so that's our review of Star Wars. Again, if you had your choice between the 3 books, I think Secret Wars #3 is definitely the one you want to pick out this week. Would you agree with that? And then I don't know that Spider-Man's entirely necessary, but if you're a fan of Spidey, it's definitely a book you want to check out.
But also Star Wars is good.
Star Wars is good. Yeah, they're all
this week.
good. Okay. So, well, then let's go ahead and move on to Geek TV. So, obviously, there are no new Geek TV shows this week, but we decided to go ahead and watch X-Men Days of Future, or X-Men the Animated Series episode, Days of Future Past, Part 1 and 2. And we thought we'd kind of talk about how it relates to the original comic and even the movie that came out. Now, for Greg, I guess, for you, this was kind of your first exposure to the comic book for sure.
Definitely.
And you'd seen the TV series before. Do you remember seeing this episode in the past?
I remember parts of it for sure.
Okay.
Not definitely the entire plot line. And as I told you earlier, when I was watching through the episodes, I was definitely kind of thinking through, okay, this is how it happened in the movie. This is kind of what I remember, and maybe this is how it happens in the comics. So you can see the 3 different levels of how they did it. And there are definitely places where the movie did it one way and the comic did it, well, the comic obviously did it its way.
Yeah.
But the TV show did it another way. And I think you were definitely right when you said that the animated series is more faithful to the comic.
Yes.
And there are a couple things like with Nightcrawler being, his parentage being revealed, and Rogue's parentage being revealed, where they did the same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
Where it's similar to the movie where you have Shadowcat sending Wolverine back versus Forge sending Bishop back versus Rachel sending Shadowcat back.
Right.
So they all just they have their slight differences, but still very similar stories. So.
Yeah. So I guess of the 3 that you've seen, keeping in mind that the comic was the original, which one do you think you like the best?
I definitely like the original comic version the best, just because, and it may have just been more novelty than anything else, because I haven't really read a comic from that time period.
Sure.
But getting to read that style of comic was interesting. There was a lot of text.
Yes.
Like, a lot.
And that's been a criticism that's been lauded against Chris Claremont for most of his writing career, is that he doesn't want to give the artist a chance to tell the story. He wants to tell them what the story is going to look like. Yeah.
And the comics also, the 2 issues I read felt like they were longer than a modern comic issue.
I can agree with that. It might also come back down to writing too. Yeah.
So it also just felt like a particularly well fleshed out story. Like when I first read it, I was watching, or I at least had on TV, the animated series Days of Future Past episode playing at the same time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And the animated series episode finished before I finished 141.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay. So that's fascinating. I've never tried that experiment. But yeah, I guess there would be a lot more to take in.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, yeah, having seen all three, definitely all three are good in their own right. I do think that the comic is probably the best told of the story, with the movie being second best, but I really love the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just amazing, especially in hindsight, to realize that this story came out before Terminator. I mean, this is a story that really parallels a lot of like killer machine robots in a future that's dystopic, somebody having to go from the future to the past to prevent it all. I mean, anybody, you describe that story to anybody today, they're going to say, oh, that's the plot of Terminator.
There was even a Terminator joke in the animated series.
Oh, where was that?
Wolverine referred to Bishop at one point as the Terminator guy or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I forgot that. That's when he was in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating, and definitely credit to Chris Claremont's chances that he took with the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's I think the first story that I can remember of comic book wise, at least as far as continuity of the book, where everybody's just getting wasted by the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
just like we saw in the movie. Actually, all the future X-Men just start dropping off.
Yep.
They start
I
doing
half
it in the book.
expected when I was reading the comic to see Colossus get ripped in half, but that didn't
Oh
happen.
yeah. But you did comment, and I actually missed this. It'd been too long since I'd read the comic and seen the movie. That Storm dies in the comic the exact same way that she dies in the
She
movie.
gets skewered by a big piece of metal.
So that was kind of a nice nod, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I mean, in general, I think that we like all of the mediums, but X-Men the Animated Series, I think, did a lot to really kind of retell the story, and they do that a lot too with other stories that are out there. The Phoenix Saga, I think, is adapted pretty faithfully between the books, and then the Apocalypse story, which happens in season 1, mirrors pretty closely to what happened in the first few issues of X Factor when we get introduced to Apocalypse. And there's other stories that are just as faithful too. So, but it was definitely a really good episode. I guess let's talk more about the episode. What did you think of the characters that were featured in the episode?
Well, I mean,
Like for instance, Bishop, right? I mean, this is kind of our first introduction to Bishop.
yeah, first time you see Bishop, and I think it's definitely an effective introduction. We talked earlier, like he does seem to just kind of drop into the story a little bit. I guess he's a tracker at first, and then he brings the X-Men in, and once he brings them in, the Sentinels are like, okay, we're done with you.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, so that's how this character gets introduced, I guess. I mean, how you introduce him, I guess, doesn't ultimately matter. Maybe there's more on that later. We get more backstory, but it's certainly not fleshed out in the animated series. But Bishop, yeah, he's a good character. The Brotherhood, there's a little bit with them. I would say they don't get a whole lot of character development in this episode, but you do get more with Mystique and her talking to Rogue and learning about their history together. So that was good.
And I think we even get a nice moment, too, between Rogue and Gambit in the episode, which was pulled straight from the original Jim Lee, Chris Claremont comics, where they're in the car, and we're kind of getting an idea of like Gambit's interest in Rogue and how she just doesn't want anything to do with him. Mm-hmm. She's definitely, the show is setting up early that she feels like she can't be close to anybody, and that she's frustrated with this guy who's like just throwing himself at her.
There's one aspect that I'm now having, I guess, read and seen the 3 adaptations that we're talking about, that's not really clear to me. Why, at any point in these future stories, did they decide to change everything?
What do you mean?
Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? So, for example, in the animated series, they just decide, okay, now it's time to send Wolverine back to try to fix everything. It seems somewhat sudden, and Bishop shows up, and he's like, okay, so you're going to try to send him back in time to fix everything? And
I think the animated series, I think
it was great because Wolverine was basically like, "What, you got a better idea?" It was like, yeah, why not?
So
might as well do it now.
I think the animated series, the idea behind the story was, we're going to tell an episode about this, and that's all that really matters. The original comic, if I remember right, and it's been longer for me since I've read it, but I think it's that they realize that there's only so many mutants left, and they're getting too powerful at Baxter Building, and they've got to make one final push, and they know exactly the event that chain linked into everything. So before they're wiped out, they're like, this is our last stand, essentially. And I think in the movie, actually, that's kind of the same sort of stance they take on it, too.
they're all like on this tiny little island.
Yeah, they're like the only ones left, and they're like, it's do or die time now. We got to give it a shot. So, I think the animated series definitely just kind of takes for granted the fact that it's an animated series. Let's just tell this story. But I do think it was handled really well. And I think the characterization of all the characters in the episode, too, is very well done.
Except maybe Nimrod.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why Nimrod appears in the story. He wasn't even part of the original Days of Future Past, but I guess they needed some sort of unstoppable. They needed a T-1000, frankly.
Yeah.
So that's what they added to the episode.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so really great episode, really great book, and just kind of cool to see how they all play together. Did you have any other final thoughts you wanted to add?
Definitely read the comic. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and you can get it for $2 on Marvel's website. The 2 issues for $2.
Yeah, so it's 141 and 142 of the original. It might be labeled as Uncanny, or it might just be called X-Men, but it's from
Uncanny X-Men.
Uncanny X-Men. Okay, but it's from like the 1981 to 82 era. So check it out, guys. Yeah, it's really cheap to get. The episode we watched is available on home video. It's also available for purchase on many different streaming sites. So check that out. I don't think it's instant streaming on Amazon or on Netflix anymore. And then, of course, the movie just came out last year, so you can find that anywhere. So if you guys have seen all 3 of those adaptations and have any thoughts yourself, let us know in the comments or let us know on Twitter and Facebook. We'd like to hear your feedback as well. If you absolutely hated it, tell us. I mean, this is just our interpretation of it. And let's go ahead and move on to our gaming news for the week. So, LEGO Dimensions is adding a lot of content, or at least a lot of licensed properties to their games. We got the announcement from Warner Brothers directly this week that new properties in the game are going to include The Simpsons, Ghostbusters, Jurassic World, Doctor Who, and Portal, of all things. Now, first of all, let me say, LEGO Portal sounds really fascinating to me.
It does.
And if they can...
LEGO Doctor Who sounds really fascinating to me, too.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, for that matter, LEGO Ghostbusters sounds great. But I just think like the puzzle elements, if they add Portal to the game, it's just really fascinating. I'd like to see what they do with that.
Yeah.
But this comes along, these announcements, these properties, go along with the already previously announced properties for the game. DC Comics, the Lego Movie, Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, Back to the Future, and there's more out there too, properties that I really don't care about, like Ninjago and a few other things. So,
and my understanding is all of these franchises will be able to cross over with each other.
Yes.
In their version of the toy box, so it's really the only game, I think, or the only franchise that's bringing that to you. I don't play Skylanders, but are there multiple franchises represented?
No. I mean, Skylanders is completely original, everything.
Yeah, it's like the Spyro world with a bunch of original content.
It's not even Spyro really anymore. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that any kid playing the game today even cares about Spyro.
Mm-hmm.
I know he was part of the original launch of the game, but the first game was called Skylanders, Spyro's Adventure, I think is maybe what it's called, something along those lines. Spyro's name was worked into the title. And with the second and third and possibly even fourth installment of the game now, they don't even reference Spyro at all. Mm-hmm. So I think, anyway, that's a whole other thing.
So you have Nintendo that's doing they have their toys and they have games associated with their toys. It's kind of like a Toys to Life franchise, although the games aren't tied to the toys as cleanly as like Disney Infinity or LEGO Dimensions is going to be.
I think you get more diversity and functionality with the Nintendo Amiibo stuff because it seems to be like the same Amiibo will do something unique for each game, so I do like that aspect of it.
But by the same token, with like if I bought 10 different Amiibos, I'm not going to necessarily be able to play those 10 different characters in the game together with each other.
Correct.
Like you can with LEGO Dimensions.
Yeah, so really, they're going all out, and I really like the amount of, I guess, licensed properties we're seeing coming to LEGO Dimensions. And my initial thought is, does that mean the gameplay is going to be able to hold all these different play styles and all these different stories?
Now that you asked that too, I was wondering earlier, what is the gameplay going to be? Is it going to be building? Is it going to be like LEGO
I
game
assume
style?
It's going to be LEGO game style, like levels where you break bricks down and build things up and platform. I mean, that's what they've made their bread and butter off of for so long.
I'm surprised, maybe I've just missed it, but has there been a LEGO building game where you can just build whatever you want in a virtual world?
I believe that's at least some of the push behind the LEGO MMO. Now, it's not like full-on Minecraft. Now, there was a game called LEGO Builder, I want to say, and this was mid to late 2000s. I never played it, but I remember hearing about it, and it was just a sim where you build stuff. But obviously, it wasn't as good as Minecraft. Otherwise, it would have taken off much sooner.
It would be really nice, and I'm guessing LEGO Dimensions isn't going to be this game then. If it's toy box mode, if they have something like that, would just be essentially a physics-based LEGO builder. That would be so nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's what it's going to be. We'll have to see. I don't even know if that's known right now.
Right. So just a lot of content coming to LEGO Dimensions. Definitely noteworthy.
Absolutely.
So I don't know that it's a game that we'll be able to actually review for you guys or get your hands on, because
something to keep an eye on.
We're pretty invested in Disney Infinity. But yeah, if you're just looking to get into it, this is certainly something you want to consider when you're looking at the landscape of all the other Toys to Life games out there. So also gaming news this week, we had a pretty big announcement with Fallout 4. Why don't you go ahead and tell us more about that?
Fallout 4. So they had a nice big dramatic 24-hour countdown from 9 a.m. to the next day at 9 a.m. And then the trailer loaded in, and basically we got a little bit with presumably Dog Meat, the main dog character, roaming around what apparently is Boston. So the next game's going to be set in Boston. There were nice little flashes of kind of the pre-nuke period as well as post-nuke period. And I don't know if that means, and this would be really cool, if you could actually switch between the two.
Okay. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that, but that would be really cool. Otherwise, maybe there will be flashback sequences or something like that. They did a bit that was kind of like that in Fallout 3. But anyway, we don't know a whole lot about the game yet. What else? The one confusing thing, I guess, is I think Bethesda announced for the first time that they're going to actually, like, Bethesda, the company, is going to have a booth at E3.
Oh.
And then they announced Fallout like a week before E3.
Well, then that must mean they have a lot to show at the booth.
Yeah, they
then.
must just have a bunch of stuff coming, so we'll probably get a lot of that soon, and it's just not quite ready yet. So yeah.
Okay, but still a really cool trailer then, and Fallout fans are going to be really into this.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to knock on it, I guess, but the trailer for me was more of a they're making another one trailer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The expected.
There was nothing that I could really latch on to and be like, oh, wow, that's firstly what this game is going to be about, and secondly, something I'm really excited to see. So I don't know, yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited there's going to be another game because I love Fallout games, but there was nothing particularly exciting about the trailer.
I mean, I'll say this.
Except that it exists.
I'm not being the hugest Fallout fan, I'm not really looking forward to it, but I did manage to catch either a piece of a trailer or something, and it was just a dog walking through a house.
That's the one.
And I was really impressed with the animation of the dog. I mean, I thought that looked pretty good. So, but of course, we're dealing with Xbox One and PS4 hardware now.
It's
so
true.
Yeah, so... All right, I mean, maybe it was Andy Serkis wearing a dog capture suit. Who
sure
knows? Yeah. So, all right, well, then that's kind of our major gaming news for the week. So, then let's just talk about our pick of the week. So, my pick of the week, guys, is actually going to be X-Men the Animated Series. I think it's a really great animated series that came out in the 90s. It's honestly the reason I got into comics at all. And it's why I still keep reading comics and why I collect comic book stuff. And as we're kind of being snuffed out a little bit in the fandom world by Marvel and their tactics right now to try to lower the amount of content that's available to us in an effort to convince us to move over to Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. It's just, I think, nice to kind of remember maybe the roots of, at least for me, what made Marvel popular, what I really got into. So definitely make an effort out there, guys. Check out the Days of Future Past two-parter, especially if you enjoyed the movie, or check out some other great episodes like the Phoenix Saga or like when the Brood first show up, or the first appearance of Lady Deathstrike. Really just anything that we get on that animated series.
Where's the Blu-ray?
There's no Blu-ray at this point. I don't think the show would look very good if they put it on Blu-ray. I think DVD quality already kind of shows its age a little bit. But it's a fantastic show. So definitely, if you're a fan of the X-Men and you like reading those books, check out the series. And feel free to tweet at me. So, and then, Greg, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your pick for the week is?
Okay, so I have to make my pick of the week. The announcement, I guess, yesterday or a couple days ago, of the Steam machine / controller / link pre-orders. Now, the first thing is just it's cool that they're finally here with price tags and you can pre-order them because we've been waiting for that for a while. But there's an aspect of this that I discussed a little bit with you earlier that I think is really somewhat going under the radar, which is that you can buy them with Steam wallet funds. And the thing about being able to buy them with Steam Wallet funds is that you can earn Steam Wallet funds from playing games, having item drops. There are people who treat the Steam market as a game and have hundreds or thousands of dollars on the market. So you could potentially have someone start with a free-to-play game that they play on their old toaster machine and build up money, buy a Steam machine with money they earn from playing games, and have kind of a nearly free or almost free-to-play style entry into high-end gaming, which I don't think any of the other consoles are offering right now. Currently, there's no way, I mean, if you have a PS3 or even a PS2, to pick up some free game and then play, get money back, and eventually buy the new gen console.
No, that's definitely something unique, and I wonder if enough people create forums and tell each other how to do that online, if Valve won't make it a little more restrictive to get
it may end up being
drops.
hard to do that in the long run.
Yep. So, but no, that's a really cool pick, though. I mean, it's very notable that that's definitely a way to get into it and to kind of check everything out.
And the price currently for the low end, at least, the Alienware machine is $449.
Oh yeah.
There was a Cypher machine, I think, for $499.
So that'll take some grinding.
And there are some higher end models as well, where you can pay up to like $1,400 for a Core i7 and some various
Get
other
enough
things.
lucky items, man. You
Yeah,
can sell them
right.
off, yeah.
That one will take you a little while if you're trying to just sell CSGO items, but.
All right. Well, one thing I wanted to mention too, I just remembered while we were going over our picks of the weeks, is that we did have some feedback from Glenn Webb on our last show, and he pointed out to us were talking about The Rock and his acting, and I think we said that his first movie was either The Rundown or the Get Shorty sequel. Mm-hmm. Glenn properly reminded us that it was the Scorpion King. That was his first movie. Yeah, I completely forgot that the cameo he did at the end of Scorpion King. No, it was Mummy 2. Was that the subtitle? Mummy 2, The Scorpion King? Now we're making ourselves look silly again. And Glenn, you can make fun of us again in the comments. But yes, I totally remember it was like really dodgy CG, and he was like this weird... he actually had scorpion claws, right? And it was just the face CG
and
on
then he got a spin-off movie.
He did get the spin-off movie, yeah. So thank you very much for mentioning that. So, but yeah, guys, again, if you want to interact with us, you can comment in the video below. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at D21Beast. Greg is at
Yoshimitsu47.
All right, and next week, guys, as I had mentioned in previous weeks, I'm going to be moving soon, so I'm actually going to be unavailable for next week. I'm going to be apartment shopping, so wish me luck. But we won't have a show next week. Thank you. We won't have a show next week, but we will be back on June 19th, and that week we're going to have a special guest with us that week. Jeff, a good friend of ours from when we were pretty young, actually, is going to be on the show with us. Jeff, if you recognize the name at all, he's written into the show. He also is the guy who sent me the Colossus and the Juggernaut Select figures that I reviewed, so definitely check those reviews out. It was pretty nice of him to do that for me. But he's going to be joining us for all the news that we cover that week, and then all three of us have a love for Transformers Beast Wars. So we're going to be talking about our favorite episodes, favorite characters, all sorts of stuff going on with that series, so guys, get ready for that. And if you're a fan of Beast Wars and have any questions about that or just want to share your thoughts, I think we're going to be doing like our own personal top 5 episodes or maybe even top 10 episodes for each one of us. If you guys have a top 10 or anything like that, put it in the comments below. We'll touch on it next week or even tweet it at us. And remember, use that hashtag Project Geek Week so it's easier for us to find. So, well, thanks for watching the show again this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be seeing you in about 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.